Welcome you to Porch Talk. This is your host, Alan. This is a Zoom call. We are going to the Rocket City in Alabama, Huntsville. And I have what many people in the music community would call a famous photographer in that area by Dragonfly Imagery, right?
Yes, sir.
And dude, I cannot tell you how many of my music friends, when they play the Huntsville scene, and if you happen to capture them, they use your photos because you do such a fine job.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think you were using the term famous a little loosely here, but we'll, we'll leave that
it,
part
it,
in.
hey, it's famous to our crowd.
Well, that's the crowd I want to be famous with.
That's it. And not only that, we're also here to talk about your book, Sidetrack Music Hall.
Yep,
And that is a historic place. It's a music hall that is no longer in existence. Is that correct?
that's correct. And a lot of people may look at it and go, the historic part might be a stretch because it was only open for 5 years. So it doesn't have
Hmm.
a lengthy history, but just the amount of talent, local and regional and national that came through there it's just, mind blowing. I've seen some amazing shows down there with a packed house and sometimes with it empty. So, you call it historic just strictly because of the bands that played there. The talent that came through there was just
And
immeasurable.
memories made.
Oh yeah, tons of memories. That was my hangout, and when I was told it was closing, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. I still miss it.
And Bud, just before we get going, is people like you doing the photography or even now writing this book about this uh, venue, it takes people like you in these music communities to really make a music community. And so I really do appreciate the work that you put in.
Well, thank you for saying so.
And
I enjoyed it. It's not like work, when I get to go to a show
yeah,
and take pictures. I'm listening to, sometimes some of my favorite bands,
sure.
uh, and I get to listen to music and take pictures. So it's not like work. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. It's the opposite of it. It's like if you find something you enjoy doing, you'll never work a day in your life. But as well as I do, I play a little music and I do a little podcasting, but I do have a day job.
Yeah, yeah, that them dang day jobs.
Well, dude, let's get rolling. Bud, tell
All
me
right.
a little bit about yourself, man. Where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in Louisiana, and it'd be hard to think, but I've been in Huntsville since I was 3 months old. My dad's from South Carolina. He ended up in Alexandria. They used to have an Air Force base there. Met my mom, got out of the Air Force, went to work for IBM, moved to Huntsville, and I've been here for the most part ever since.
Okay.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
so yeah, it's just, I've got that Louisiana, I guess some people call it a little bit of coon ass in me and a little bit of Cajun back down the line. So, but I've been here in Huntsville, this North Alabama area for a while. For God, I don't even want to say how long. It'll kind of give away my age.
Well, man, tell me a little bit about growing up. I mean, music happens to be a big part of your life, also photography. And so just kind of walk me through how you would find these art forms that you really enjoy.
Well, music wise, growing up, I listened to various things. Of course, back then, a lot of times what you'd hear would be on the radio. Occasionally, you'd be able to get a new 8 track. That's how far back it goes. And one year, 1976, my sister asked me if I wanted to go to a concert with her and her boyfriend. I'm like, sure. I've never been. Yeah, I'd like to go. I'd like to see what it's like. And little did I know that it was Kiss was in town. It was
What?
Doctor Hook and Kiss,
In Huntsville?
and it's 1976, so everybody knows there was a little bit of smoke and grass going on. So we had the buzz on, and I get to the show, and I'd never heard of Kiss. I'd never
Mhm.
heard a song. I'd never seen a picture.
How old are
Did
you,
not
bud?
70, 14, 15 years old.
Okay, okay.
and get there, and of course, there's people walking around in their Kiss makeup and their costumes. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Freak
Yeah,
out.
I was like, what exactly is going on here? This is pretty cool. And Dr. Hook come out and did his set. And I was like, well, that was interesting because at one part it almost felt like he was about to expose himself. And I was like, okay, this is pretty wild. And then of course Kiss comes out and they start blowing things up, the flash pots and Gene Simmons spitting fire and spitting
Hmm.
blood. And after it's over, I was like, fucking rock and roll. Let's do this. I was
Yeah.
hooked at that point. Let's find the rock and roll. So, back in the 70s, Huntsville, I wouldn't call it a hot spot, but it's one of those spots where in between Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, and Memphis. So we get a lot of stop throughs. Aerosmith would come to, Ted Nugent. I think I've seen Kiss here 4 or 5 times. So it was a lot of people coming through. So it was, I've been going since 76. I've seen a very wide variety
Vernacular.
of
Yeah.
acts.
Yeah, I mean that's good just for culture. I remember I was telling you just a little bit before we got going. I'm from Kennedy, Alabama. It was just about 45 minutes west of Tuscaloosa, right on the Mississippi Alabama state line. And as far as culture goes, I mean, this is before the Tuscaloosa Amphitheater. If you wanted to get a good show, you would have to go as far as Tupelo, Mississippi, or you would have to go to Birmingham, Alabama. If you wanted to see
Mm.
like a big show like that. And just to have that knocking at your door, I mean, that had to be something else, right?
Yeah, well, my biggest regret from that time in my childhood, my grandmother, who lived in South Carolina, came to town one year to see a guy named Elvis.
Yeah, I mean, could you tell me a little bit more about that? Who is that guy?
I think they called him the King of Rock and Roll or something like that.
Did he have like his hips were so much that they couldn't even show him on TV for a while? Is
Yeah,
that
Ed
real?
Sullivan said, "No, we're not showing that." But
Yeah.
she came to town and was going to see Elvis, and I guess I was 12, 13 years old. She goes, "Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to go see that." And
Oh my gosh, bud.
that was a 74, I think. So he died shortly after that. So now I look back and I'm like, what an idiot. I should have just sucked it up and went. Not only would I have got to spend time with my grandmother, I would have got to, see Elvis.
Yeah, and we
So
don't think about that at that time, though. I mean, you were probably like teenage years. How lame is it to go to a show where
yeah,
you're.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah,
all those, that's probably the biggest regret. I think there was another one around 79, maybe early in 80. Some buddies were headed to, I don't remember if it was Nashville or Birmingham. They were going to see AC/DC. And,
oh
it's
man,
when Bon Scott was still alive. So I was like, no, I'll wait. I'll go next time. Well, there was no next time. So that's kind of a regret because, you talk AC/DC, I want to hear Bon Scott. I'm
sure.
not a big Brian Johnson fan. He's good, but I like Bon Scott. I like the original.
Yeah, he was a good pickup. I was listening to a podcast today, and like they were talking about just they were actually talking about uh ZZ Top and how ZZ Top, from as far as we know ZZ Top, they've been the same lineup the whole time. And then, the conversation carried on to bands such as AC/DC, or even the Rolling Stones, up until 1994. 1994 up to now, the Rolling Stones have been the same lineup as far as like guys in the band. And
Hmm.
AC/DC is a good example of that when they brought in Brian Johnson. But like people put so much respect on original lineups, as they should.
Well, that's what we listened to. I can remember the first time I heard AC/DC. I want to say I was a junior or a senior in high school. I don't remember. It was in high school, and I went over to a buddy of mine's house, and he said, "Hold on, you got to hear this new album. It's this new band out of Australia." And
Mm-hmm.
he had just bought the "If You Want Blood" album, the live one,
Mm-hmm.
and he put it on. I'm like, "Holy shit, what the hell is that?" And, so it's like, okay, we got to hear more of these guys. So, we went back and we were finding imports, the old original Powerage release, and somebody somehow we found a copy of the Jailbreak. At that point, you couldn't go on YouTube and find these songs. You had to, if you weren't lucky enough to find it in the local record store, it just took some real hunting.
Hmm.
So, but we went through high school listening to Bon Scott. So, when it went to Brian Johnson, Back in Black's probably my favorite album that
Sure.
he did, just because that's the introduction to him. But my taste have kind of changed or refined a little bit since high school. So I don't listen to a lot of AC/DC anymore.
Sure. And so, I mean, just like coming up out of high school, and you can tell me a little bit like after high school, what would you pursue? Would you go into college? Would you join the workforce?
Well, I wasn't really a goal-oriented person in high school. I actually graduated, didn't really have a real good clue of what I wanted to do. So I went to a year of college over at University of North Alabama in Florence.
Hmm.
Pretty well partied myself out of that first year.
You pet the
Uh,
lines?
huh?
Pet the lines?
And, oh, hell no, I ain't putting no line. Draw back a nub. But then I came back and I talked to a old high school teacher I had, which he was a big influence on me in high school and even after, because I went to him and asked for advice. So I enrolled in a local community college for
Hmm.
radio and TV. And while I was in getting working on that associate's degree, started working part time in television and worked in television almost 28 years before I got laid off in 2008. So had a that
How
seems
did
like
that,
another lifetime ago.
how did that start up for you though, bud? How'd you get into television?
That's from school. When I went
From
to
school?
with radio and TV, uh, the local station would call the school and go, "I've got a part time position. If you got any students, send them over." So I applied, got the
Oh,
job,
nice.
and at that point I quit school. I'm
Yeah.
like a 3 or 4 time dropout in college. Every time I start, I end up quitting.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that, dude. It seemed to work out. What about like as you progressed 2008, the end of radio and TV, like what happened then?
Well, I tried a couple of things. I tried the local Fox station to try to get back in TV because you're working almost 28 years in television production. I was in production. I wasn't in front of the camera.
Right.
And the local Fox station just really wasn't, they didn't have newscasts. It really wasn't my thing. Left there and actually worked in a gun shop selling guns and ammo for a couple of months.
Hmm.
Tried to get back on another TV station that I had first started at. And that things had changed so much that I always heard once you're in management, you can't go back. Well, it's true. It just wasn't the same. So this current job I'm at came along. So I've been there since November 2009, something like that.
Hmm.
So,
Well, tell me a little bit about how photography would come into your life.
wow, photography, I guess, kind of goes back a long way. I've always been kind of like a hobby shutterbug, if you will. I can remember being in the Boy Scouts carrying a camera, and back then cameras aren't what they were. This was a old Kodak. It was a box, and you actually looked down through the top, and you had a thumb. So I'd take something like that on scouting trips, and I've always had a camera of some sort close by, whether it's an
Sure.
Instamatic or. And then to end up where I'm at now in photography during the 2020 lockdown,
Hmm.
my fiance got me a drone for my birthday, which was in May, which was shortly after the lockdown started.
Sure.
And to occupy my mind and keep from going stir crazy, I would go out and just shoot various locations of drone video and come back and edit, pick a song, and edit drone video to it. And she kept ranting and raving how good the shots were. You got an eye for this. You should go pro. And So I did. I started a business. At that time, it was Dragonfly Aerial Imagery because I was trying to sell the drone
Sure.
and did a little bit of work that fall shooting youth football, which they were using it for uh,
Game footage.
game footage to go back and review games. And then that December 2020, that's when I upgraded my camera from an old Canon and I went Sony, the mirrorless full frame.
What
And
made you change?
I just read so many good things about what Sony had, their product. You read some of the reviews, and it's just people ranting and raving how good this camera was and how reliable it was. I said, well, okay, I'll try it.
Uh-huh.
And I bought one Sony, and about a year later, I upgraded to the camera I'm using now. And Sidetracks is really, where uh, I cut my teeth shooting shows.
That's
Because
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because Eddie Yesick and Shane Bickle, you probably read about them in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie was part owner, manager, and Shane was a booking agent, and they didn't have any problem, with a club like that. As long as the bands didn't have an issue with it, then you could go in and just shoot away. So I went in there and shot and experimented and shot, just kind of honed what I do at concerts. Thanks to Sidetracks, they were so open with letting us in that it really helped a lot.
Yeah, and I just looking at, I guess it may have been Nikki Simonson that really kind of got us introduced. But ever since I've been introduced to your work, I was like, man, I gotta play a show in Huntsville to get a shot by Bud Gambrell, man. This guy knows what's up.
Well, I wish you could. I can't wait for you to see some of the shots I got of Tyler last time. Tyler Tisdale was in town 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we hung out for the afternoon and went and did some
It was fun.
offstage promo shot, and then I shot his show that night. So nobody has seen any of them promo shots yet. I think Nikki's seen two of them. I snuck one or two out to her.
Tyler speaks very highly of your work, by the
Oh,
way.
Tyler's great. I mean,
Yeah.
his show is just amazing.
He's a great musician, but like, I mean, how did you? We talked about you growing up and going to these Kiss shows and uh, working in TV and radio. I mean, how did you get into photography? Like, where did it come from? Like, how did you put photography and music together?
Well, part of the challenge of being a photographer in a town like Huntsville, and I hear it's like that other places, is I can walk out my front door and throw a rock and hit a photographer. There are so many photographers. You see people on Facebook, I need a wedding photographer, I need a portrait photographer,
Sure.
and it's like 60 or 70 recommendations. So I was trying to come up with something that not everybody else was doing.
Hmm.
There's a couple of others in town that shoot shows, and they're good at it. But there's not as many portrait photographers. God, there are tons of them here. So to try to make money doing portraits just didn't look like that was feasible because just so many people were doing it. So the music just was kind of twisting off, going in a different direction.
You go.
That was pretty much it on that part. It just, just picking that direction. And, I went down to, Sidetracks when I got the new Sony. I said, Shane, do you mind if I come shoot? He said, no, as long as the artists don't. And I've only ran into a couple that, are with bigger management companies. And it's not like they have a problem. You just have to get permission ahead of time.
Sure.
And, most people I guess most musicians, they like looking at pictures of themselves and, stuff they can use as promo shots and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Not only so much as like an ego thing to look at themselves, but also as something that they could use for a promo. I think you
Yeah.
nailed it with that. Uh, and you went into it a little bit, but uh, tell me a little bit about meeting the cats at Sidetracks.
Got meeting which ones? The bands?
No. Like getting your foot in the door.
Oh, that it had kind of during 2019, I'm trying to think back. 2019, it kind of started becoming a regular hangout because they were doing so many good shows coming through. And then 2020 came around and they did such a good job, coming out of the lockdown.
Hmm.
Um, it was very interesting. Again, I cover a lot of this in the book. On March 13th, 2020, Magnolia Bayou and Them Dirty Roses played Sidetracks. It's Friday the 13th. Well, Saturday the 14th, the world shut down. And then within 2 months, the first show back was Them Dirty Roses acoustic, and then the
Hey,
next show back was Magnolia Bayou acoustic. So, and then comes around October, September, October is when the first Throttle Fest was. Shane put together an indoor music festival in the middle of a pandemic. So, there's so many memories there. But, I actually was attending there before I started shooting there. So I already had a relationship with them, and so it was easy to approach them and say, is it okay if I do this? But I wasn't the only one because, I mean, see, Brian Kahn's another photographer in town, is shot there. Samantha White. Um, oh God, I'm going to forget somebody's name, so I shouldn't have started name dropping. But everybody's welcome to come in there and shoot. There's no, again, unless the artist has an issue with it, or
well,
if you need pre-approval. So, guys, great memories down at that place.
man, give me a little background on the place. Like, where exactly was it located?
Well, as you read in the book, it was actually in a strip mall. You pull in the strip mall, when you first pull in, you couldn't even see Sidetracks because it's down at the end. It's like way down at the end, and you wouldn't even think it was anything. But you walk in, and it was I don't know how they did it, or if they had a formula, or if they just got lucky, but it just fostered this environment of a family. Everybody that went there was at home.
Hmm.
Um, I've been there and known, half, three quarters of the people there. I've been there and been by myself and not knowing anybody there, but everybody's so friendly and so open. By the end of the night, you've already made more friends. So somehow Eddie and they just had this. It's hard to explain. I've been to a lot of places, but there's most places don't have that environment, that
Sure.
that feeling that it's just there. Everybody's at home. You walk in, okay, I'm home.
So, Bud, tell me a little bit about why did you think it was something worth writing about with Sidetracks? Why was it worth making a book?
Wow, good question. I guess when it cuts down to it is that place meant so much to me and so many other people. There's so many other people that had the same, it at least as strong as some, maybe even stronger attraction to the place. So I guess it was my way to document it, and maybe my gift to those people that loved it so much.
I mean, just someone from the outside, even though I'm from Alabama and just 3 hours away, when I read the book and when I was, and it's such a fun book, and I highly recommend people picking it up, not only for your photography work, but for the words that you put into it, and it really paints a story of this venue. Of man, you did such a wonderful job, and like man, it it really was that illustration of a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to your photography just because you're so damn good at it. But but man, like when you're telling the story of this venue and like man, it makes me really wish I was there to experience it, you know?
Yeah, I wish you would have too, because again, it's one of those things. It's hard to put into words the atmosphere that they actually, fostered there. It's really hard to explain. It's one of those things you had to experience to really understand.
Sure.
And people loved it. And there's so many times that I would go there. There's people that would come to Sidetracks from all over the country.
Sure.
Michael Robinson, he lives in Oregon. He'd been to Sidetracks twice. That's a dedicated fan, to
Yeah, no
fly,
kidding.
come that far. Uh, there's other people from Georgia, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. Of course, Tennessee, Nashville's just, hour and a half away. Um, the Carolinas, people from all over would come because they'd heard about it and they wanted to experience it. And there's so many times you would come, and it's like I mentioned, earlier about, the nights that you'd know half the people in the room. It was some of those shows were like uh, a family reunion that just happened to have music playing. Um,
That seems very special, bud. It's almost like a Grateful Dead or a Fish show to where like it just seems like it wasn't so much who was playing that night, it was just the venue itself.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times it was, people would follow a band, and that's where you would meet some of them. Um, them Dirty Roses, I won't say they got their start in Huntsville, but they give Sidetracks some credit for, kind of being a springboard, for where they're at now. But you'd go see them and you'd meet people, and then the next them Dirty Roses, you'd see them again. So it's like you kept seeing some of these people repeated, and then you'd see them at different concerts, different people that were playing. So it just really became, at times like a family reunion out in the parking lot before the show. A lot
Sure.
of hugging necks and, sitting and catching up, and, not just with the fans that were coming, that, the bands were the same way. A lot of
Mhm.
these bands that played there, have become, friends with, and, periodically, you check on each other, and, uh, some of these guys, Throttle Fest 3 is coming up around the corner, and there's some guys that are playing that I haven't seen in, a year or so, and there's, fans that will be coming that I haven't seen. So it'll be, another one. It's not at Sidetracks, but I think that weekend's going to have a Sidetracks feel to it. I can feel it coming.
Well, Bud, let me ask you this. Someone like me, and I was just someone who followed you on social media and was such a huge fan of your photography. And then I saw that you were working on this book, and I was incredibly interested in it. So I was an easy catch. But us talking here on the internet, why should someone that doesn't know anything about Huntsville or the sidetracks, why would they be remotely interested in this book? What's the draw?
Well, I hope there's a good enough story there.
What's the story? Tell me a
The
little bit
sto
about that story.
the story's about the people.
Mm,
It's the
mm-hmm.
people. You know, the I have intended since I finished, and it didn't launch till late June, so it's only been out a little over a month. Um, I intended to go back and count the number of people that I interviewed, and I've also been intending to go back and count the number of pictures and tour posters. That alone for a music fan, just to flip through and look at the music posters, and I, it's the people, and it's not just the fans that would show up. It included the employees. They were part of the family.
Sure.
You had bands that would meld into part of the family. So it's, the book's about the people, and it's all positive.
Mm-hmm.
When I set out to begin this thing, I decided very early on that I didn't want to cast a shadow on anybody or anything.
But
And
what experience did you have writing a book before this venture?
um, well, let me see how many I've done before. There's no, none. I had none. I didn't I didn't know anything about it. And
What I mean, what really made you want to do it? What made you want to put it in like a book format, man?
well, I got the idea. I mean, this wasn't an all original idea. Of course, everybody that's got an idea has got it from somewhere else.
Sure.
Last year, I think it was just prior to Sidetracks closing, a uh, a manager of a band that I had met at Sidetracks, Ryan Pope, great guy, love the
Hmm.
guy to death. When I first met him, he was a road manager of a band out of Murfreesboro called Revelry. So then he comes back around with a band that he's managing now, Ace Monroe. Now you got to check these guys. Both of those bands are just phenomenal.
I
And
I truly trust anything that you or Nikki says. Y'all have
yeah,
wonderful taste.
yeah, Nikki's a music nut. She's into it.
Yeah, she is.
But Ryan asked me, God, I think it was the last time Ace Monroe played that right before Sidetracks was closing, and they were about to play the Exit in Nashville,
Hmm.
and he asked me to come up and shoot their show that night. It was a couple of days later, and at that time, Exit In was also closing. Uh, the word was developer had bought that whole square and was fixing it. And Exit In, I don't want to compare Sidetracks to the Exit In because Exit In, you're talking about historical. You walk in and it's got walls with all these names of everybody that played there. And I mean, it's like anybody that's anybody in music has
Mm.
played there. And it got to the point, it was, I felt right after I walked in, I start looking around and it's almost like Wayne and Garth in Wayne's World 2, where they, and they meet Alice Cooper. I'm not worthy. That's like, wow, this is amazing. So it cut the story shorter. I
You
was at
tell it however you want to tell it, man.
there's a little bar right in front of Exit In that's attached to it. And we were sitting there having a drink talking, and somebody had gone back and done the history in which with the Exit In, it's a real history. And they had done a more of a tabletop book,
Mm.
a coffee table book. And I looked through it and I said, wow, this is amazing. And so right after Sidetracks closed, I think it had been closed like 2 or 3 weeks. I was feeling a little lost. I didn't have a hangout. So I just bounced the idea off a couple of people. I said, what do you think about putting a book out on this? And, everybody was all for it. So, I started and I started doing some interviewing. And the more I started getting into it, I said, oh God, I'm getting all this information. I have no idea what to do. I don't know anything about putting a book out. And I almost stopped, almost abandoned the project. And then one day I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to prove to myself that I can do it. And I did it. That first copy come in the mail, I'm holding it. I'm like, oh, this it was so surreal.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but it's
Man,
out, and I hope people enjoy it. I really do. I've had some people tell me, the things that they've said. A guy that I think so highly of lives over in Florence. He made a comment that it's the best book in history. Now, I don't take that. It's just the best. I know it's not the best, but for him to get such emotional lift out of it, that's what really got me about his comment.
well, it really grabbed me by the heartstrings. Even though I had never been, and just seeing the photography and like just reading through it, it was something that really captivated my attention. Um, and it was something that I wish I got to experience, and I could only imagine reading it as someone who had. It
Yeah,
would
yeah,
almost be like flipping through a yearbook.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, Matt, the guy that made that comment, Matt Sullivan, uh, he actually had attended as a fan and as an artist. He was in a band that got to play there a couple of times. So he got to see it from the stage and then from the floor. So
Mm.
he had a real emotional investment in that place. So, for him to make that kind of comment, there's been other people that made comments and, some of the things they've said, it makes me feel good that you know, it, it reached them on an emotional level.
Sure, man. To say that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Some of the things that have been said is, it's really I don't know if pride is the correct word, but just that feeling that, you made somebody feel good.
Well, man, I'm just familiar with you through social media and your photography. And then you send me the Dropbox version of the book, and I get to read it. And the amount of work that you put into writing that was equivalent to the caliber of your photography. And like,
Thank you.
Bud Gambrell, you are no kind of man that sells anything short. and you put your entire heart into whatever you do. And so I want to accommodate you on that, man.
Like
Like,
you're gonna make me cry a little bit.
I, dude, dude, like,
Thank you. That's so kind
respect,
of word. That's so kind for you to say. So
respect, man.
kind. Yeah.
And I'm glad you did it, and I'm so happy that people were like so proud of, and I don't know if that's the right word, is pride, but like to think of their music scene in such a way and to take that time. It's one thing to be a photographer for the scene, but
Hmm.
it's another thing to write a book and not only forward and write a book and have all these pictures to illustrate what you're talking about, but man, it is truly an immersive experience, and that is something that I highly recommend. I mean, it kind of takes me back to like some of these famous joints, like we think about all over the United States. And I'm blanking on the one in New York City that shut down. It was the big punk scene. I can't even
Oh
get,
God. Studio 54.
yeah, and things like that. And it's like you really like who else has done this for Alabama? Who else is like who else has done this? And I mean that was a big part of like not only because I'm a huge fan of your photography, but like for you to like stake your claim in writing, and now it's historical because you wrote about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I never thought of it that way, but I did it again. I did it for, for the people that were there and for anybody that likes a good story. I was hoping it would be a good story because, the day I actually hit publish, I was like, I almost couldn't push the button because
Oh
I felt
man,
I felt like I was, exposing a certain amount of myself.
yeah, you
That people,
are.
as I got this, okay, am I ready to, are people going to like this? Are they going to hate it? It's like, okay, got to do it just so I hit publish and, the people have read it. I've heard some really, really good feedback. And again, that, for them to get that emotional, uh, I actually had, two women that were, Mandy and Brandy, oddly enough, and they both work there. And they said they cried through the whole book. And I said, well, it wasn't supposed to make you sad. And they said, no, it was tears
Oh,
of happiness.
oh, yeah.
They, it got them on
I
that emotional level.
I never experienced it, and just going through that book, like just because the venues of rather being on stage or a part of the crowd, like, dude, you did such a great job of enveloping that story and that scene, man.
Well, I couldn't have done it with all the people that helped me out. I mean, there's a
That's
lot
true.
of
That's
people. I
true.
mean, there is no way I would even mention any more names because if you look at that very last section, the thank you section,
Hmm.
it's a fairly lengthy number of people that, gave me their time, to do interviews.
Yeah, sure.
So that took a lot of time, and then you had to compile all of that and try to make sense of it, and hopefully get some kind of flow. But yeah, you asked earlier, I didn't know anything about doing a book. I did the whole thing other than, the part where people did the interviews. I even did the layout inside. I
Hmm.
gathered up all the posters. I ended up doing the editing myself. So that book is like mine. I mean, I did everything.
Yeah. Well, bud, let me ask you
Oh, except
this.
for let me back up and
Okay,
and
okay.
retrieve that. I did not do everything. There are some pictures in there that I did not take. So I
Hmm.
didn't do those, but there were other photographers that were willing to, let me use them for the book.
Sure. Let me ask you this. You spoke of vulnerability. If I can't even say the word right, being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Uh, is there a difference between this art of writing than taking a photograph to you?
I've gotten so well, the photography thing,
Because in both aspects, you're kind of behind the lens. Would you agree?
yeah, the first time I started, again, really started posting and taking a lot of pictures, it was at Sidetracks. So the first couple of times I was kind of like, wow, should I post these? It's one of those, will anybody like it, or will they say it sucks, or, and I still do that when I pick some to, put on. I'm like, well,
Bud,
It
you're a
is. It is.
badass.
Oh man, I'm just. It's the camera and it's the editing. Adobe and Sony, they make me look good.
Oh, come on, dude. You got an eye for it.
Well,
I mean,
that's what that.
I could take a picture of a rock, but I mean, I feel like you could take a picture of the same rock and make it blow up. Let's go,
Well,
baby.
we can add some special effects and some overlays in there, a couple of
Yeah,
flames and
look like a
some
nuclear
smoke.
bomb going off.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt,
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
but yeah, man. I mean, plug tell the good people about the website and how they can get more integrated with the story.
Of the book,
Absolutely.
well, right now it is the main distributor is Amazon.
Hmm.
And just go to Amazon.com and search Sidetracks Music Hall. And anytime I've done that, it comes right up.
Okay.
And it's the hardback and the softback and the ebook are all in the same listing. You just pick which one you want. Now, local to Huntsville, the good folks at the Fret Shop have copies available, and there's Vertical House Records, which is they've got to have every record ever made in there. They have got it. They're carrying it local too. So that right now is the three distribution spots.
I wanted to pitch this to you, and this is the way that I would really want to ingest it. I've already read it, but what if you did a version, and you can take your time. You have the hard copies out, you have the ebook out, but what if you got people to narrate it and read it? Like you read some, and maybe some of the musicians that came through read some, and some of the people read some, and you made like a really cool like experience as far as reading it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Some
it's an audio book. What do you think
somebody had
about that?
somebody had asked me that question before, and I had to stop and think about it. And my gut reaction answer to that question is it wouldn't be the same without the pictures. I think the show posters and the pictures make the book just to
Ah,
listen to the story, it would not be as interesting to me.
it kind of goes back to the picture being worth a thousand words. Like those
Yeah, yeah,
pictures are really telling the story along with the words as you go
yeah.
through and read it. I
You know, we
understand that.
we got pictures, from, on stage. We got pictures off stage, people,
Yeah.
out on the patio. Uh, all the show posters, I don't know how many, and all the show posters I did, each chapter is a year, and
Sure.
the show posters and the pictures in that chapter are year specific. It's
Hmm.
not like that jumps around. Each chapter has, if it's got a picture or a show poster, it's from that particular year. So spend a lot of time going through and checking dates and inserting pictures where they go. So, but
Yeah.
without the pictures, I don't think it would be the same story.
I don't disagree with that. Uh, yeah, and just to go back to the book to give people a better idea of what they're getting themselves into, is you're telling the 5 year story of a music venue and just all the everything that took place, right? Like you got these photographs and also you're telling the story by word. Like what's going on?
Well,
Just for the listeners, what's going on?
well, one thing that listeners, if you do ebooks, when I had started this, I went back and documented, I think, every show that I ever played from opening to closing. And I included that calendar in the ebook.
Hmm.
I did not imprint because it would have added 150 more pages and the price would have gone higher. And I think the price is right now, I think it's, Amazon. That's my only, I'm not a millionaire. I can't go print a huge box of books. So Amazon does all that. Um, but more pages would have made it more costly because it's
Sure.
full color. So it's 357 pages, full
Yeah.
color. A lot of colored pictures. I love the show poster part of it.
But
That's
like and don't be intimidated. Like if you're listening and if you're interested, it's like 357 pages, but like I mean there's it's not like reading the Bible or like reading a history book.
now there might be a section. There might be. what, 5, 6 pages that are nothing but pictures and show
Right.
posters. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can skip through parts of it relatively well. You can't go through it quick because I think that's
You need
part of
to
the
take it
attraction
in.
too. Yeah, you got to take in. My fiance, which has had uh, access to this thing the whole time, she still hadn't finished it because she keeps stopping and looking at pictures. So it's like,
That was so what was so hard for me, bud, when I contacted you about having you on the show and you sent me the PDF and like you would continue to contact me and it's like, buddy, I just need more time. I need more time. Like I thought I was reading it right, and I felt like you were rushing me a little bit.
well, no, I was just following up, following up. If I
Yeah, and
let
I was
things
like,
go too long,
yeah,
I'll forget them for good.
that's true, and I'm glad you kind of stayed on my horse about that. It was good for me too, but like, dude, I was like, I would spend 30 minutes here, an hour there, and I was like, I'm really enjoying this, and like, you did such a wonderful job of portraying the scene and Sidetrack to almost make it feel like I was there. And I've never had an experience like that. So I want to commend you on that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I tried to. That's what I was shooting for because, as you've noticed, I mean, there's so many people that I talk to.
Mm,
The employees, uh, people that attended, bands. I had a couple of managers. I even, in the very end, if you notice, there's a couple of people that never got to play there that had heard of it
hmm
that would have liked to have played there. So I even got, outsiders, a couple of little bites from people from the outside. So it included so many different walks of life that that's why I was shooting for that enjoyable. I guess probably a good word.
Yeah. Well, Bud, unless you instruct me differently, I got three questions for you and we'll walk it out of the door.
Okay.
Number one is I would like for you to plug the website and to plug all the places to where they can find this book and keep up with your photography.
Oh, wow. Okay. Amazon.com. You can get the hardback, softback, and ebook. Locally in Huntsville area, the Fret Shop on Jordan Lane has paperback. I don't currently have any hardbacks with me. We had that release party, and I sold every one of my hardbacks. And also at Vertical House Records over at Low Mill has some paperbacks as well. Uh, if you want to follow me, just friend Bud Gambrell on Facebook, or I've got a, Dragonfly Imagery page on Facebook as well. I've got Instagram, but I don't really keep it updated. And
Hmm
I've got an actual website, but I wasn't getting a lot of traffic, so I don't keep it updated. So I mainly use social media on Facebook.
Sure. Question two is tell us a little bit more about your photography. And I know most of it is available on your Facebook, but are you still being the absolute boss on photography when it comes to live music?
Well, I'm trying. I'm trying to be the best. I know so many people that do photography, and there's a couple of them that I admire, just big time. And I want to be as good as them one day. So that's what I'm shooting for.
Well, dude, I got to be honest with you. It's like we got somebody here in town, and I'll call him out, Chris Jenkins. He does a great job here in Columbus, Mississippi. But I like his work, and he's done a lot of great work like you have. But man, since I've been enamored with your work, I was like, man, you are unbelievable. I don't know if you take like 500 shots at
Oh
one
yeah.
go, but
Oh yeah.
you just seem to
Oh
you
yeah.
just
I shoot a very high ratio. Yes.
you just seem to catch the moment, even if it's down to the millisecond.
Well, there's times that I'll shoot in what they call a burst, where I've got to be focused in on somebody and just hold the shutter down and just let it just, and then you go through and pick that one where you're getting emotion. That's what I try to shoot for, is that emotion of the
Yeah.
player at the time.
And last question to walk out of the door. It's real fun. You ready?
Yeah,
What is your karaoke song?
I have never done karaoke.
Well, if you did, what would it be?
Oh wow.
I'll tell you mine.
That would probably depend on if I was drinking beer or drinking tequila, so that would probably be depending on the mood of the night.
Oh, have you got any kind of an answer for me though?
Oh, geez.
Give me something.
It would probably be something not easy, but not with a lot of range. Probably something country,
Okay.
like something Ward Davis or Cody Jinks or Tyler Tisdale, something that I
Ooh,
wouldn't
Tyler
have to show
Tisdale,
my
good
like.
plug.
What I wouldn't have to show, all this range because I grew up in the '80s and '70s listening to heavy metal and rock and roll, and no, I wouldn't even try. What some of those guys do, make a fool of myself.
Fair enough. Well, let me ask you one last question before you
Right?
go. What's your favorite hangout in Huntsville right now?
I don't have one. I don't have one.
They
they
close your
closed my
place?
hangout. Now there is a place that we mentioned Throttle Fest 2023 coming up. It's at a little place off of downtown called Rocket Republic, and they are shooting for that same kind of atmosphere. So it's nice down there, but it hadn't really sunk its teeth into me like Sidetrack has.
I understand that completely, man. I do know what it is like to lose a scene, and it sucks.
Yeah, yeah, it sucked, and
And
there's still people.
it's not only that, it's like not only do you not have a place to go, but all the people who hung out there, they all feel displaced a little bit. And so you all feel like scattered mice looking for somewhere to go.
Hmm.
And oftentimes you don't end up anywhere. You never go anywhere again, you know. And so
Yeah.
I hope they do. You- I hope they
Well,
do.
I hope that the guys, Paul, the owner, one of the co-owners down at Rocket Republic, great guy. So, they're trying to shoot for that same kind of hangout. Um, but I like it down there. That's where we did the book release party, is at
Cool.
Rocket Republic. So great people.
Right on. Oh, well, I mean, I know I went over my three questions, but anything else you would like to plug or do before we go?
No, no, I just want to thank you again for having me. I appreciate the time you give me and give me a chance to tell people the story of that book. And I hope people that get it, enjoy it. That's my only hope. And again, it doesn't cast a shadow. There's no dirt. There's no bad news in it. I tried to keep it positive from the beginning, and that's where I ended up with it.
But it's a wonderful book, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
And thank
And
you, Alan.
man, long live Dragonfly
Thank you.
Images
Thank you.
and whatever you continue to pursue to do, man. You take care of yourself, okay?
All right, you too, man. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Talk soon.